Hi, everyone. Our group will be discussing to you the training to current employees. But before anything else, let me introduce to you the group members. First, yours truly, Jean Marie Del Campo. Next is Catalin Antonio, Princess Anne Hermano, and Cristina Jugiat. We understand that training a current employee is a key human resource management issue because it directly relates to enhancing employee skills, improving job performance, and aligning employee competencies with the organizational goals. So therefore, in this presentation, we are going to talk about the organizational responsibilities for training for current nursing staff on new equipment, explore the laws and regulations for training, and outline barriers and strategies to the continuous nursing development. So our learning objectives are the following. First, describe the organizational responsibilities for training for current nursing staff on new equipment. Next would be the outline barriers and strategies for continuous nursing development. And lastly, to explore the laws and regulations for training.
Hello, everyone. I will be discussing the organizational responsibilities for training nursing staff and new equipment involving several key actions that ensure the staff is adequately prepared, confident, and competent in using the new technology, referencing the Sailor Academy Chapter 8. Number one is the needs assessment. The organization must first assess the training needs by evaluating the complexity of the new equipment, the current skill levels of the nursing staff, and the potential impact of the equipment on patient care and safety. This ensures that training is targeted and relevant. Training program design. Based on the needs assessment, the organization should design a structured training program that addresses both the technical and operational aspect of the new equipment. The program should include a combination of hands-on training, demonstrations, and educational materials such as manuals and e-learning modules. Next one is the scheduling and resource allocation. The organization must plan for sufficient time and resources to accommodate training sessions without disrupting patient care. This may involve creating a rotating schedule for staff to ensure that all nurses can attend training sessions without compromising their responsibilities. Another is clear communication. The organization must communicate the training schedule, objectives, and expected outcomes to all nursing staff in advance. This helps staff understand the importance of training and ensures full participation. Number five, hands-on practice. Nurses should be provided with hands-on opportunities to interact with the new equipment in a controlled environment before using it in patient care settings. This practical experience boosts confidence and helps nurses learn to troubleshoot and handle the equipment under real-world conditions. Um, Number six, qualified trainers. It is the organization's responsibility to ensure that experienced and knowledgeable trainers, whether internal staff or external experts, lead the training. Trainers should be familiar with both equipment and the nursing context to offer practical insights. Number seven is ongoing support and feedback. After the initial training, the organization should offer continuous support such as refresher courses, access to troubleshooting guides, or a dedicated team to ensure to answer questions. Managers and supervisors should monitor the nurses' use of the equipment and provide feedback to ensure proper usage and identify any additional training needs. Evaluation of training effectiveness. Following the training, the organization must assess its effectiveness. This can include observing nurses' performances with the new equipment, collecting feedback from the nursing staff, and measuring any improvements in patient care or operational efficiency. Last is the fostering a learning culture. Finally, organizations should foster a culture of continuous learning where staff feel comfortable asking questions, sharing knowledge, and seeking further training when needed. This helps to maintain a high level of competency with evolving technologies in the healthcare environment.
I will be discussing about the laws and regulations for training by Concordia 2020. Healthcare organizations must adhere to numerous regulations to ensure their training programs align with legal, ethical, and professional standards. These regulations differ across countries, states, and provinces. The following are the typical laws and regulations that frequently impact training and development within healthcare organizations. Number one laws will be the Equal Employment Opportunity. In here, training programs must comply with equal employment opportunity laws, which prohibit discrimination based on race, color, national origin, sex, disability, or religion. Second is Occupational Safety Health Administration, or OSHA. OSHA sets standards for workplace safety, including healthcare specific regulations. Training in areas such as blood-borne pathogens, personal protective equipment, emergency preparedness, and handling hazardous materials is a key part of healthcare workforce development. Number three is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, wherein healthcare organizations must ensure that all employees receive regular training on how to handle patients' information to comply with privacy laws. And lastly, Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, in which training programs in healthcare organizations should also include components on disability awareness and providing accessible services to patients with disabilities.
We'll be discussing the barriers to continuous nursing development. According to CNO 2024, these challenges can hinder nurses' professional growth and the overall improvement of healthcare services. Organizational issues is number one. It would be the lack of management support. Nurses may find it challenging to pursue development opportunities if their supervisors or management do not actually encourage or facilitate their participation. Another would be inadequate staffing. When staffing levels are low, nurses might not have the time or flexibility to attend training sessions or further their education as they are needed. Second barrier would be the personal challenges. For example, is time constraints. So sometimes nurses often felt the need in balancing work, responsibilities with personal life can be difficult, leaving limited time for professional development. And another is family responsibilities. Nurses with caregiving duties may find it hard to commit additional training or educational programs. Another barriers to continuous nursing development would be educational obstacles, limited professional development opportunities, and high cost. So limited professional development opportunities meaning access to relevant and high quality training programs can be limited by factors like location, the resources available at healthcare institutions, or the cost of the programs. High cost, the expense associated with continuing education, including tuition, materials, and travel, can be prohibited for many nurses. And lastly, technological barriers. It is the lack of access to technology and insufficient training on new protocols. So, lack of access to the right technology and resources can prevent nurses from taking online courses or using educational tools. Insufficient training on new tools because without proper training on latest healthcare technologies, nurses may struggle to keep up with advancements that could enhance their practice and patient care. Here are the strategies to solve some of the barriers for continuous nursing development. So, number one, creating a culture of lifelong learning. So, we should establish a workplace culture that encourages ongoing education and professional growth. Example, a hospital can implement mentorship programs where experienced nurses guide newer nurses in their career development. When learning becomes ingrained in the workplace culture, nurses are more likely to take advantage of development opportunities. Second, providing access to continuing education and training. Ensure that nurses have access to high quality, relevant training programs, offering a variety of educational resources like online courses and in-person workshops make professional development more accessible to nurses with different learning styles and schedule. Third, utilizing technology for remote learning. Leverage digital tools to provide flexible learning opportunities. For example, implementing e-learning platforms where nurses can access courses on topics like patient safety, new medical procedures, or leadership skills at their convenience. Online learning can help nurses balance their work schedules with their educational goals to pursue education without interfering with their work schedules or patient care duties. Number four, encouraging interdisciplinary collaboration and learning style. Promote interdisciplinary learning by facilitating collaborative training with other healthcare professionals. Organization joint simulation-based training sessions for nurses, doctors, and other healthcare providers to improve teamwork and communication in high-pressure situations because interdisciplinary education strengthens teamwork by helping nurses learn from other healthcare professionals, improving patient care and understanding at different roles. Another strategy would be offering career development pathways. Create clear advancement pathways to motivate nurses to pursue further education and development. For example, offering nurse leadership training or clinical specialization programs that prepare nurses for roles such as nurse practitioners, clinical educators, or nurse managers. Because a clear career advancement opportunities through education and specialized skills motivate nurses to invest in their development and help improve retention by showing support for their growth. Next would be regular feedback and performance review. So, incorporate feedback in regular performance evaluation to identify development needs. For example, supervisors can provide constructive feedback during annual reviews, setting clear goals for the nurse professional development and recommending specific training or courses because feedback-based strategies personalize nursing development by guiding nurses to improve specific areas and set goals for ongoing growth. Another would be fostering peer learning and knowledge sharing. This encourage peer mentoring, group discussions, and knowledge sharing sessions. For example, establishing regular team meetings when nurses share best practices, recent learnings from training, or case studies they've encountered in their practice. Because peer learning boosts team unity by allowing nurses to share knowledge and experiences, benefiting both individuals and the organization. And lastly, providing financial support for education. We should offer financial assistance or incentives for nurses to pursue further education. For example, implementing tuition reimbursement programs or providing scholarships for nurses pursuing advanced degrees or certifications. Because financial support helps nurses access higher education and specialized training, while organizations are responsible for training current staff on new equipments, orienting new hires in acute care settings, and assessing their performance to ensure success. As we near the end of this presentation, let's take a moment to reflect on a key principle that drives our approach to employee development. Training doesn't stop at orientation. It's a continuous journey to help employees grow. My group mates ponder that for current employees, training shouldn't stop after the first orientation. Instead, learning should be a continuous process throughout an employee's career. This ongoing training helps employees build skills, improve performance, and stay ready for new challenges. The goal is for employees to keep growing with regular opportunities for development and feedback.
To sum it up, it is the organization's responsibility to ensure proper training for nursing staff on new equipment through thoughtful planning, sufficient resources, skilled trainer, hands-on experience, and continuous support. This approach ensures that nurses are well prepared to use the equipment safely and effectively. leading to improved patient care and enhanced operational performance.
Employees who are trained in new systems are more efficient and can complete tasks faster and more accurately, leading to fewer delays and errors. This enhanced efficiency can improve patient care by providing real-time insights and better decision-making. Proper training also reduces resistance to change as employees feel more confident in using the new tools.
Barriers to continuous nursing development refer to the challenges that prevent nurses from engaging in ongoing professional learning and development, which is crucial for improving patient care, advanced skill, and staying current with healthcare advancement. These barriers can arise at both the organizational and individual levels and may include time constraint, financial limitation, lack of support, and organizational culture. And in order to avoid interfering with patient care, organizations need to plan training schedules and allocate resources carefully, ensuring that staff are not overwhelmed. Expert trainers, whether from within the organization or hired externally, should conduct the training to ensure they have adequate knowledge of both the equipment and nursing environment. Effective communication regarding the training schedule and goals is essential for ensuring staff involvement and improvement.
Lastly, incorporating laws like EEO, OSHA, HIPAA, and ADA into training is crucial for workplace compliance, inclusivity, and safety. These rules guarantee that all employees have access to training, cover workplace safety, and safeguard patients' confidentiality. And this is our references.